Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames, and back again with more hands-on E3 2019 impressions. This time we're talking about a game that's very dear to me, but probably one that's not super popular and didn't get a whole lot of coverage during the show, and that's Grandia HD Collection. Now, this game was announced last year, almost entirely a year ago, right before PAX 2018, and it kind of just fell off the radar. Like, we thought we were going to get it in the winter, and then that didn't happen, and then the spring, and then that didn't happen, and here we are with it at E3 at Gung Ho's small little office, and yeah, it's still not coming out, and I can't give you a release date, and they can't give you a release date, so it's still kind of like up in the air about that, but still at the same time, it is nice to know that, hey, this game is real, it does exist, and they are trying to get it out as soon as they can. What I can tell you about the game, though, is that what I saw at E3, which is basically my big question was, how does Grandia 1 translate into modern day gaming versus Grandia 2? Now, Grandia 2, it has a PC version that's going to get updated on Steam with this releases. And, you know, it had ports before, like a really bad PS2 port. But the Grandia 2 on this HD collection is based off the sort of PC, which is based off the Dreamcast original. So I wouldn't worry too much about that or anything. But yeah, I was more interested in Grandia 1. And I had most of my questions answered, luckily, by the staff at Gung Ho, so that was pretty nice. It's primarily based off of the PlayStation version of the original game, mostly because of how insanely hard it is to emulate Saturn code and software. But it does try to basically, okay, even though it's the PlayStation base, it tries to actually re-implement some things that were missing in the PlayStation version that were on the Saturn version. So one thing you will notice is the water effects or just the general sprite and stuff like that, sprite artwork or whatever on water surfaces, much better, much closer to the Saturn original. There's way better shadows. I don't know if it's 100% accurate to the Saturn version when it comes to the shadows and lighting, but it definitely is taking a step in that direction. And one thing that I will say, which is probably the best thing about this HD collection right now, is that the game just runs better all around. Like, I mean, if you're like me and you're mostly familiar with the PlayStation version, you'll notice that this game just the rotation of the camera and the movement, everything is just smoother here. Everything's a little bit faster with the loading. Everything's just a little bit better. It is based off the original text translation. It still uses the old voices from the PlayStation original, so you are going to get that awkward as hell 90s Sony first-party dubbing on RPGs. It's kind of got its own charm for me. I wouldn't call it good, but I would say that it definitely has a sort of time and place feel to it. But regardless, the thing is, why should you be excited about Grandia in general? And the thing is, Grandia 1, one of my favorite RPGs of all time. I think it's top 3 best all-time RPGs, and it's basically this massive love letter to Castle in the Sky mixed with Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. It's basically just mostly Castle in the Sky and takes a little bit of Nausicaa and it just smushes it together in this extremely 90s aesthetic, kind of like art style, sort of reminiscent of the old Slayers anime, which is probably something none of my newer fans have any idea about, but trust me, it was pretty good. And yeah, it originally comes from Game Arts. They are not doing this port. I forget the name of the developer that is doing this, but basically Game Arts approves the work done on this port, but they are not doing the port themselves. I don't even know how much of Game Arts even exists anymore, to be honest with you. But yeah, as far as that goes, it's a very smooth, much better running version of Grandia 1, so that's actually pretty nice to see. And it is nice because the original version of Grandia, I believe, is on I think it's on the PS3. I don't know if it's on PS4. I think it was remote play on Vita, but again, like if it was just PS3 and Vita to download the old version of it from the Sony store, then yeah, if it's not on the PS4, I don't know it. Then yeah, we're looking at a game that's kind of hard to download and play right now. Not impossible, just sort of a little harder. But with the HD collection, we're actually going to get 1 and 2 bundled together. It is not a retail release. if those of you who are hoping for that. I'm a little bummed about that, but whatever. I kind of understand. It's like it's coming from a smaller publisher, and it's gonna be. It's not a very super well known game, so whatever. It is one download on the Switch. You are getting the HD collection. It is one single file download. There's no splitting. Like there's a title screen, and it says Grandia 1 or Grandia 2. And you then, from that title screen, you go into the title screen of the game you selected. So, as far as like improvements go, I think the biggest improvement, besides performance in Grandia 1, was the fact that during the game, at any point, you can go into the options and you can change the dialogue between English or Japanese audio. So, if you don't want to hear the awkward as hell 90s anime dialogue, you can switch it over to the Japanese original voice dialogue. So at any time during the gameplay, you don't have to do that before you load a file. So that's actually really nice, especially for people who kind of want to just see or hear it as it originally was made in Japan. So that's pretty cool. There's been a lot of work done to the cutscenes to make it widescreen because, of course, the Switch is natively widescreen. And, of course, the original Grandia, which was made in the mid to late 90s, was not made widescreen at all. It was... all the cutscenes were done, in standard, 4:3. So they've actually meticulously gone in and worked it so that you don't, the cutscenes are not stretched for widescreen, but they're actually filled in. So that was actually kind of impressive to see. I was a little impressed. There's not a lot of cutscenes in Grandia 1, but there's enough to the point that it's like you're going to be glad that they seemingly took the time to fill in the borders rather than just either cut it off, put black bars on the sides, or stretch it, because neither one of those are really, they don't look really good when you do that. So that's pretty nice. I think the one sort of disappointment for me is the fact that they've gone back and they've basically tried to touch up the character sprite portraits and the basically the textures of the game, because the game is sprites on top of 3D backdrops, kind of like Xenogears 1, or, well, it's the only Xenogears, but the original Xenogears and games like that. So they've tried to touch up the sprites themselves, the character portraits, and they've basically, the idea was they wanted to try to get rid of like polygonal seams and smooth out everything. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. It absolutely looks like the high quality 2x filter you see on emulators for old 2D systems. And yeah, it kind of has that sort of smudged look to it. It doesn't look great, and there's no way to turn it off. It's just built in. It's baked into the game now. It's not horrible. It doesn't ruin the game for me. And it does actually look, obviously, a little cleaner, a little smoother, because, it doesn't have like hard, sprite edges on everything. But I would personally prefer it if they could add a original game filter on top of it. I would much prefer that myself. I'm not a huge fan of emulation smoothing or emulation high quality filtering, which is what it kind of looks like. So it's not my most preferred thing, but again, I don't think it doesn't ruin the gameplay. And again, this game does play better and smoother than the original ones. Probably the most weirdest and interesting thing I've noticed so far is that some of the footage that was captured at E3 by other outlets, there's basically a lot of missing sound effects. And when I played it, I didn't notice it, and I feel like I would have. So I don't know if there was a weird thing with the TV or the whatever they were recording off of or recording equipment, but it's definitely noticeable in the footage online, and I didn't notice it, and I really feel like I would have. So hopefully if it was there and I just somehow missed it, hopefully it's ironed out and fixed by release. I know there's some history with Grandia 2 and sound problems. I'm heard that's getting fixed. Grandia 2 does have, I think, one filter graphic option for Grandia 2, not for 1. But yeah, I really didn't play or look at Grandia 2 at all on the HD collection because I kind of feel like, well, I feel Grandia 2 is going to be fine because it's already has like a current PC version, and it's been re-released over time, where Grandia 1 was sort of lost to the ages. I did inquire about any I guess pre-order bonuses or like extras, but because it's digital download, it's obviously not probably going to have anything like that. I did ask about the Digital Museum. Now, Grandia Digital Museum is a sort of what we would call today DLC. It was a separate disc released after the game was finished in Japan, only for the Saturn, and it included extra, like a little extra boss or dungeon area, and it had basically just a bunch of artwork and a bunch of 3D model view. I don't know if it's 3D model views. It had, you could view the cutscenes, you could see like stuff like that. It's basically just a sort of behind the scenes little extra disc for the fans, and they obviously did not confirm anything about that happening. They tried to, they seemed like they were teasing about it, but I that could just be me. I don't like, they did not say that there would be. They didn't even really suggest it. They just sort of teased like, hey, we're aware of it. Maybe, and I was saying like, hey, it could be actually DLC now, hopefully, but there's absolutely no confirmation at all about Grandia Digital Museum being on this collection. So I don't think it will be personally. I hope that they do take the time to try to make it a reality, even if it has to be DLC down the line. I think it would totally be worth it, because it is a fascinating little bit of gaming, just trivia and gaming extra that has kind of really lost to time on the Saturn in Japan. So I really would hope that would happen. But again, the only disappointing thing, again, was the high quality filter here and the fact that we still don't have a release date. They're basically just working it out, trying to get a license or approval. The thing is, you'll notice when you boot this game up, Square Enix is listed in the opening credits because they have some sort of publishing rights to the series. They did publish Grandia 3, and apparently it's kind of hard to get everything approved because like Grandia 2, that was localized by Ubisoft, so Ubisoft has to have like some sort of approval, as far as that and stuff, and Sony like originally localized Grandia 1, and since they're using that localization and those voices, I think there has to be approval going through there and yada yada. So it's kind of a legal quagmire to try to get this game out and approved and get everyone happy. And of course, Original Game Arts developers. So I guess the reason it's kind of taking this long is that it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we kind of got to get everyone on board with the game, that everyone has like a little bit of piece of ownership or something they have to go through. So that's just me guessing, so I don't know if that's really the case. It just seems like it. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but I have no idea when it's going to come out. They don't seem to have any idea. It's kind of seems like at this point, like we're just kind of waiting for everything to be smoothed out and approved. But when it does come out, you'll obviously be hearing a lot more of it from me because, again, it's one of my favorite RPGs of all time. And then, of course, you get Grandia 2 on top of it, which is a pretty darn good RPG in its own right. It's like the second best one on Dreamcast. So, yeah, it's going to be a hell of a bundle, even just 2 games. But it's like 2 of the absolute best RPGs, man. Like, it's going to be such a great thing. And on PC, you'll be able to download it and basically the PC version of Grandia 2 will be patched and updated to the HD Collection version of Grandia 2, and then you'll just get Grandia 1 as it is. So PC and Switch right now. I didn't ask about any other consoles. Probably should have, so I apologize on behalf of that. So yeah. But yeah, if you've been looking forward to this, I guess sit tight because it's actually real. It exists, and it's hopefully coming soon. If you're kind of unaware about this, I would highly suggest looking into it. I cannot recommend Grandia 1 enough, especially if you like RPGs that are very long, have a really good arc for the main character, and are not sort of super sour and downer or just sort of emo, if you will. Like, it is kind of the polar opposite of say like something like Squall in Final Fantasy VIII. It is just completely opposite of that. It is all about going on a grand adventure and absolutely basically just being a huge love letter to early movies of Studio Ghibli. So can't recommend this enough. Hopefully it comes out soon, and let me know what you guys think about Grandia HD Collection in the chat and the comments below, and I will see you on the channel later, dudes.